I welcome those joining. Good day, Luke. Oh, John and Audrey, Gregory. Oh, Ricky. As usual, we'll give it a couple minutes for people to come in before we get started. Welcome, Yankee. John. Oh, Jayanta, welcome. All right. We'll get started in about a minute. Hello, Yoel. Welcome. We have a couple weeks of Dhammapalooza left before I take a break because I'll be in California most of April. California, then Colorado. So for the month of April, I basically won't be doing anything stream wise. But until then, for the month of March, everything should be as normal. All right, let's get started. Share screen. Attamaha Purisa Vitaka. 8 thoughts of a great person. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Apiccayasanang dhammo nyayang dhammo mahicchassa. Santussaya dayang dhammo nyayang dhammo asantutitassa. Pavivittassayang dhammo nyayang dhammo sanganikara Aradha viriyasayang dhammo nyayang dhammo kusitassa. Upatittatsattayang dhammo nyayang dhammo muttassatissa. Sammahittassayang dhammo nyayang dhammo asamahittassa. Panyavato ayang dhammo nyayang dhammo dupanyassa. Nippapanchara masayang dhammo nippapancharatino nayang dhammo papanchara massa papancharatino. English. This Dhamma is for reducing desire, not for increasing desire. This Dhamma is for increasing contentment, not for increasing discontentment. This Dhamma is for cultivating seclusion, not for becoming sociable. This Dhamma is for becoming energetic, not for becoming lazy. This Dhamma is for developing mindfulness, not for developing unmindfulness. This Dhamma is for developing composure, not for making restlessness. This Dhamma is for increasing wisdom, not for decreasing wisdom. This Dhamma is for delighting in freedom from impediments, not for delighting in impediments. Sadhu. So these are ways that you can see, looking as you're practicing. Is this the right Dhamma that I'm practicing? Are all these increasing? Is my desire increasing or decreasing? Is greed, hatred, and delusion increasing or decreasing? You can see this as you practice. Then you can know if you're doing it right. All right, friends. Well, welcome. It is Monday night. So that means we have time for the Maggasekha community to come together for another 2-hour festival of Dhamma, Dhammapalooza. As you can see, I'm in a different place now. After a little bit short of 2 months at Bhante Rahula's place, now I'm back in New Jersey with family. And this weekend, in a couple of days, I'm flying out to Arkansas. I should be back in Jersey for next week, Dhammapalooza. So Dhammapalooza should be unaffected. But tonight, we have time together as a community to figure out what we're going to do. You know, Dhammapalooza is always a festival of Dhamma with a variety of different Dhamma-related activities as possible. We did some chanting. Later, we'll do some meditation. In between, who knows? Right? This is a community-led, a community-guided event. So it's up to you. What will tonight be like? Will we have lots of questions or no questions? Will we read suttas? Who knows? So the next couple of minutes, if you have any questions, feel free to put them in the chat. If you have any topics you'd like me to discuss, any talks, little Dhamma talks you'd like me to give, feel free to put that in the chat. If you have anything you'd like the community to discuss, put that in the chat. And if there's nothing, well, there's always a sutta on deck, ready to be read. Huh. Interesting. I've heard tell of this Chat GPT in the last month or so. from many different angles, but I did not connect Chat GPT to studying Pali. Hmm, that's interesting. I don't even know like where you would even look up like how I guess I could Google it to find Chat GPT and test it out. That's interesting. 90% accurate. That's pretty good. I don't know. That's a good. What do you think about potential applications for learners? I don't know. Maybe you could use it to help you test yourself, stuff like that. I'd have to like fiddle with it myself before my mind could like start to really kind of come up with ideas in that way. I mean, could you use it almost like ChatGPT is like your Poly instructor? I don't know how much of I guess there's a good amount out there of Pali related things in English, like learning Pali and things like that. I guess there's enough out there for ChatGPT to be mostly good when it comes to Pali. That's a good question. It's a new world, man. It's a new world. And it's just gonna see, I've been thinking about these kind of things for years. Like for instance, there's a pretty good chance that if I live long enough, I will be one of the first monks in the history of Buddhism, my generation to like decide, well, do I take life extension and live a couple more thousand years or do I just let it go? Right? There's all kinds of these wild like transhumanist slash wild tech questions of possibilities within my lifetime um, that most Buddhist monks will have never had to deal with. Chat GPT is one of those things. And who else? And who knows what else? Although I hear these deep fakes are getting really good. Maybe I could like save myself the trouble and just have like a AI Bante J give a bunch of talks. I'll have AI Bante J do Dhammapalooza and I'll just be chilling. I'll just be like hanging out. Like what's going on? Less work for me. Or somebody like who gets to like Bante G or Ajahn Brahm level. If you have too many people that want to hear a talk from Ajahn Brahm, you just like have a bunch of AI Ajahn Brahms or deep fake Ajahn Brahms that give talks. You could have like 8 Ajahn Brahms giving a talk in different places in the world at the same time. Joel, didn't you change your name to Yoel? Are you back to Joel now? Or was Yoel a totally different person? Hello, Shen. Welcome. Just got a Kindle loading with Great Dhamma. When are you writing a book? I'm already writing multiple books. It's a matter of when they'll actually be done and go out, which probably won't be for a number of years. It's like writing is not easy. And this is kind of like more my training phase than anything else. Training myself to learn how to write and things. I've always been a pretty decent writer. I've always been. I even like in lay life for a bunch of years. Actually, I was writing a fantasy novel. I had like 300 pages of notes and stuff just on the world and things like that. So writing has always been something I like doing. When it comes to Dhamma writing, though, there's always like, I don't know, it's not like a doubting of my own ability per se, but it's always like, well, maybe if I wait a little bit longer, I'll know more. The book will be better. I mean, I don't know. I don't know. So, but yeah, I plan on writing books, although I don't know that it will be like what defines me. Like that's like a very Bante G thing. Like Bante G is essentially defined by his books in many ways. And I don't know if I want that for myself, you know, especially especially if it, you know, like I don't want my books to ever have a price tag. You know, there's a downside to that. There's it's great when it's free. Well, it's never free because somebody's always paying for the printing. Um, but on the other hand, you know, if you get in with good with Wisdom Publications, which as somebody who's a student of Bante G, um, if they like my writing, obviously, I mean, I've already had contact with Wisdom Publications in the past. Um, I just don't know if I'd ever want to do anything with them because I want it to be free. But Wisdom Publications also has a pretty big audience and ability to spread it out. So it's a double-edged sword, but I mean, yeah, you can probably expect these days being a nomad. It's hard to do it. My energy levels are fluctuating, you know, wherever I'm trying to. One of my lessons of nomad life is trying to maintain some kind of consistency and normalcy in the midst of moving around, and it's quite hard. But that's why it's a training. It's a lesson. Um, yeah. Hey, Perennial Daydreams, welcome. All right. So he's the funny thing. My thing with Chat GPT is that unlike Dhamma talks from a teacher, Chat GPT will never be able to speak from their own experience. True, but as more and more teachers' experiences are put on the internet, it could fake it. Right. This is why this is one of those things where like people playing with this AI, they think, oh my God, it sounds like it's alive. But no, it actually it is able to take the knowledge and the wisdom of the internet and pretend, right? So it's not really like if you talk to somebody who really knows what they're talking about, no, chat gpt and all these things are not alive, they're not sentient. But because they have the ability to essentially take on the to tap into the total sum of all human knowledge and experience ever existing in the modern age, then they can do a pretty good job of faking it. I bet you AI could write a pretty good Dhamma teaching in the style of Ajahn Brahm. I think it probably could do it. Obviously, it's not Ajahn Brahm, but it is what it is. All right. So Joel, um, it's gonna be a while before you have anything to put on your Kindle from me. I would. I'm not even gonna put a date on it. Um, okay, Perennial has a question. I was wondering if you could talk about altars. All right. Okay, just checking the chat here. Um, I was wondering if you could talk about altars. I know it's widely used in the Mahayana traditions, but I've seen mixed answers with Theravada side. In actual traditional Theravadan countries, altars is a mainstay of temples, people's houses. These are very common things. The only way that you might see that altars are not being used are from Westerners who don't like altars, who don't feel the need for one, right? But in terms of traditional Theravada, yeah, of course, altars are part of. You go to any Sri Lankan place, you're always gonna have a Buddha Rupa. That's what they'll call it, Buddha Rupa, Buddha statue. Altars may have some incense, flowers, candles, pictures of senior monks. This is very common in Buddhist tradition. So I would say your mixed answers are probably related to um, maybe Westerners. Now, you can't fully claim. I mean, there have been strains like in Sri Lanka and things like that of Sri Lankan people who have kind of like tried to go back to the suttas and not altars and things like that, or even not having Buddha statues. Um, but those are very rare and they don't tend to actually last in Buddhist countries. Um, so I would say most, if anybody is kind of saying, "Oh, altars are stupid" or whatever like that, or you don't really need altars, probably Westerners. And this is coming from a Westerner who I've literally not had an altar. Let's see, when did I start this whole Buddhism thing? All right, so this whole Buddhism thing is coming up on 17 years, something like that. 2007, I would say, is when I started. 2006, 2007. And after a year or two, I never had an altar again. No, don't need a Buddha statue. It's just not my thing. It's just never done anything for me. Um, but I would never say that like, oh, this is not part of Buddhism, because obviously it is. It's always been part. Well, not always, but for thousands of years, it's been part of Buddhism in one way or another. Having trouble getting into Ajahn Brahm. Can you recommend one of his better series or talks? Well, it depends. Ajahn Brahm is not for everybody. Um, he has a particular style that for me was perfect. Ajahn Brahm was exactly what I needed to kind of really break into the Dhamma. Um, because I needed that kind of like, kindness towards your own, mind and body and things like that. I needed that message. Um, so he was, one of a line of teachers who at the time I needed to hear their message as part of my path. I watched his talks for 7 years. And I've been able to actually spend time with him in real life now. So if you can find him talking about suttas, like not his Friday night talks, if you can find him talking about suttas, he's a bit more kind of serious and straightforward there. A lot of his talks, like there's talks that are only available to monks that you are quite different than the talks that the average layperson will hear. Um, they they're not going to be like available on YouTube and things like that. You might maybe check out like one of his books, like The Art of Disappearing, right? Mindfulness, Bliss, and Beyond. But I remember I only read a couple of his books, just like I've only ever read a couple of Bhante G's books. But I'm pretty sure The Art of Disappearing, I remember that very fondly. Um, Interesting book. Hello, Dharma learner. Welcome. But yeah, if a teacher doesn't call to you, then it's okay. Doesn't matter how famous they are. There's dozens, maybe not dozens. There's I can think of at least 4 or 5 um, who are very, very famous, big monastic teachers who have their teachings have done nothing for me at all, at all. And I've tried because like, oh, must be famous, wise people. I should try to listen to them. And I was like, no, it doesn't do anything for me, and that's okay. They're not for me, right? I'm not for everybody. There will no doubt be people who, even in the years to come, even now, probably like, God, Bhante J, he's so annoying, and he must be like really arrogant and egotistical. He's always online, and there's always videos and things like that, right? So whatever, that's how it's gonna be. Not everybody is gonna be for everybody, and that's okay. And there will be, just like for me, I've already experienced it. There have been a couple people who really kind of connected with me and really wanted to hear all my things, but after a year or two, they kind of disappear, right? And that's because I was kind of part of their path for a certain amount of time, and now I'm not anymore, and that's okay. That's just how it is. Um, Very few of the people I see here on in this chat now are people that I've known for years and years and years. That's just the way it goes. Let's see. I have a friend, Ricky is saying, I have a friend in my local group that's new to the suttas. Coming from Nichiren background, he is used to bodhisattva ideals. Can you discuss the EBT goal of practice and stages of awakening? Yeah, there's no bodhisattva ideals in the early texts, nor are there paramitas, right? The paramis. These things do not exist. Now, individually, all of the paramis exist in the early texts, but as some kind of grouping that you practice, no. So, there's you will never find the Buddha encouraging anybody to spend any extra time in the samsaric state in the suttas at all. He does not even approve. He picks up the little piece of dung and his fingernail, and he says, I do not approve of even this amount of samsara. Right? So you never see him like stick around and help others. No, he's like, get the hell out of this place now, as soon as you can. End your samsaric journey. So it's quite a different tone, which can be kind of jarring from somebody who's used to more kind of fluffy Mahayana. It's like, we're gonna save everybody and all that kind of stuff. The Buddha, the Buddha in the early text is like, I can't save anybody. Well, you think you're gonna save somebody? I can't save everybody. Buddha's only point the way. People have to follow the path. Very, very different. Very different. The goal of the practice in the early text is awakening. The Buddha, of course, understands that not everybody is ready for awakening in this very life. Even if you're a monastic who's striving hard for awakening, you might not have enough training from past lives to actually make it in this life. Even if you were practicing really hard your whole life. Of course, you don't lose that. I mean, you're going to become awakened maybe in the next life or the life after that. So it's not like it's a waste of time. But the ultimate goal is to free yourself from the samsaric state, to end your suffering. Not everybody will do that. Not everybody is able or willing to do that, at least not in this lifetime. But if over many lifetimes, hopefully they're able to hear the Dhamma, and maybe it takes 100 lifetimes of just kind of hearing it. They're walking down the street and they hear somebody talk about it, right? And then eventually maybe they are born in a place that they can sit and listen to Dhamma talks. And then 1,000 more lifetimes after that, then maybe they want to become a monk. And then they want to become awakened, stuff like that. So it's a long process over many lifetimes. And the stages of awakening are the gradual abandoning of the 10 fetters. Right? At each stage, fetters are either fully abandoned or attenuated. And so until you become fully awakened, in that point, there are no more fetters. There's no more chains. There's nothing more chaining you, keeping you to the samsaric state. And at the end of your final body, parinibbana, you're extinguished. And of course, this is where you kind of get this kind of focus on becoming awakened. Is where you get the Mahayana perception of the Hinayana, right? That the Theravada, this is the selfish path. But if you read the suttas, you see that the Buddha, every time that I've ever seen something in the suttas, it's not about just you, nor is it about others at the expense of you. It's about both, right? You'll see over and over again when you're reflecting on your actions. Is this beneficial to ourselves and others, or both, or harmful to ourselves, others, or both? Right. So the early text, the mindset is that you're always reflecting on your actions in relation to yourself and others, not either or. So you actually doing the path in the early texts is of benefit to others. You have the simile of the acrobat, one of my favorite similes, where the acrobats. You may be seeing this. It's kind of rare, but I have seen like videos in like from other countries that it's still kind of done. So they have these long bamboo poles, and you get up on the poles and you do flips and do all kinds of things with these poles. And so the simile is of these two acrobats. There's I'm gonna botch the attendant's name, Meta Tanalika, something like that. Some long Pali name. So there's the master acrobat and his apprentice. And the master acrobat says to her, to his apprentice, Meta Tanalika, you watch after me, and I'll watch after you. And together we'll go up on our poles, perform, come down safely, and gain our pay. But the apprentice was much wiser. The apprentice says, no, master. I'll watch after myself. You watch after yourself. And together we'll go up on the poles, perform, come down safely, and gain our pay. And the Buddha says, just as the apprentice says, when one looks after oneself, one looks after others. When one looks after others, one looks after oneself. And how does one look after oneself and others? 4 foundations of mindfulness, satipatthana. Right, so this is, it should be understood that there is no aspect of the Buddhist teaching anywhere that is selfish. Nowhere. That should be understood right from the get-go. Hello, Mexico. Welcome. Dhamma learner. Bhante Bodhi has a new book this month. You mentioned you have not met him in person. Are you still trying? Thank you. No, I'm not trying. I mean, if the opportunity comes up, it's attempted. But even I think we were going to try to do it not even a year ago, and again it fell through. So, and it wasn't my idea. It wasn't something I tried to do, but it was something that was I was going to go with Tan Nisabo when he was visiting. This was less than a year ago, but then it fell through. So, Bhante Bodhi. It's so weird to think of Bhante Bodhi, but that's really how you should call. You should never really call somebody Bhikkhu because it's kind of a little disrespectful. It's like I explain it like if you grew up Catholic, you don't call a priest. You don't say, "Hey, priest." You say, "Father." Right? It's the same thing. You don't say, "Hey, Bhikkhu." You say, "Bhante." But still, my mind is just so from the early days, you look at the book. Like whenever I write my book, it's not going to be by Bhante J. It's going to be by Bhikkhu Jayasara, right? And most people probably are not used to me as Bhikkhu Jayasara, but there may be people who read the book and that's what they'll know me as. And they'll say, "Hey, Bhikkhu Jayasara," and I'll be like, "That feels kind of weird." But anyway, no, Bhikkhu Bodhi has never really been that important to my path. Because he's not really a teaching monk in a way. He's more of a scholar monk. So like the most important thing that he did was the translations. Like without the translations, the suttas. It's like to me, that's all. Like he's already up top compared to for doing all of the translations of the suttas because that's of such benefit to so many people. Even Buddhist people, even Sri Lankan people and Thai people who are not able to read the suttas in their own language, but they read it in English. Such benefit to the world that he did that. And now that Bhante Sujato did it and you can read it with Pali, people who really undertake to translate all of the suttas. Wonderful thing. Wonderful thing. And Bhante Bodhi's scholarship is great, and I enjoy that stuff. But in terms of like deep Dhamma, that's not really his thing. His Dhamma talks and things like never really connected with me. But he was technically the first Theravada monk that I ever had knowledge of, and it was because of two things. It was first I went to the first monastery I had ever gone to was the Mahayana monastery up in northern New Jersey, Chinese Chan monastery, and they had a book section, and that book section is and I was already I was on the Theravada path by that point, but there was no Theravada really for me to go to, especially monastery wise. And they had a book, Noble Eightfold Path by Bhikkhu Bodhi, and that's a great book. Like that was really beneficial for me in the beginning, right? And obviously, then I heard, oh well, Bhante Bodhi like teaches here, and I was like, oh, that's cool. And then I found a series that was really important for me in the early days, early days. 2000 end of 2006, 2007, before I officially became a Buddhist in 2008. It's a 10-hour series. Is it the Buddhist teaching as it is, or something like that? It's an audio series, and I can remember taking breaks when I would do like 15-minute break at work, and I just go, or like a lunch break, and I'd just be walking around my office and just have it in my ear and just be listening to Bhikkhu Bodhi talk about Nibbana and what is the Buddha and all this kind of stuff. And That was really good. That was really, and it's funny. I remember I went for a walk with Bante G maybe about a year or so into me living there, and I was explaining to him about this talk, and he's like, "Oh, I know, I was there." So Bante Bodhi did that series in the '80s when he lived with Bante G in Washington D.C. Buddhist Vihara, right? And this is the like late '70s, early '80s. So it was kind of interesting to hear that. But yeah, so it's like Bhikkhu Bodhi was important for me in those early days. Not so much now. Kind of same thing with Ajahn Brahm. Like at least Dhamma talk wise, Ajahn Brahm's not that important to me. Like Vinaya and community wise is where his importance is for me now these days. And again, that's like I was been saying it, that changes, right? You know, certain if you observe your path, this is why that one Mahayana Zen teaching, that statement, right? When the student is ready, the teacher will appear. That's been my experience, right? Different monastics will become prominent and appear kind of when I need them. Like Bante G was a large part of my life for 8 years. But now that time has passed. That's just the way it goes. There's a couple of questions, but I'm going to jump to perennials just so that because it's on the same topic. Would you suggest Bhante Bodhi's translations of the suttas or another English version? I would suggest checking them all out. Like on our Discord, when we do our sutta readings every weekend, like we did yesterday, it's every Sunday at 7 p.m. We'll read from Sutta Central because it has the English and the Pali, but then Aya Suddhamma will have Bhikkhu Bodhi's translation book, and we'll compare, right? Or Bhikkhu Bodhi will have a notation, right? And she'll read it. I think because it's important to understand there's no one translation that's 100% perfect or 100% accurate. There is none. I've seen translations of 3, 4, 5 different translations. And the reason I say this is because a lot of the Pali words can have a variety of different meanings depending on the context. Right? So it's not a simple thing to just translate. It's not a simple thing to just translate and say, this is the exact way of saying things. So this is why I don't, Bhikkhu Bodhi's is probably, if you want to say, the most technically correct, but it's also very wordy. It uses kind of highfalutin words, right? And so like words that like the average person might have to be like to look up in the dictionary. What does this word mean? In terms of like the Sri Lankans, like the Sri Lankan monks basically only accept Bhikkhu Bodhi, like a non-Sri Lankan translation. They only accept Bhikkhu Bodhi's translation as accurate. Is it like he lived in Sri Lanka for 20 years? He knows the translation. I've never met a Sri Lankan monk that actually approves of Bhante Sujato's translation. But it is what it is, but no. So this is why I don't take one translation as gospel, right? As this is the only translation, and that's always how it's been. Because, for instance, my translation, the translation I prefer of metta, is actually Ajahn Jeff's, Thanissaro Bhikkhu's translation. He translates metta as limitless goodwill. Loving kindness is a horrible translation of metta. It's horrible. It's ancient. It has nothing to do with actual metta. It's a horrible translation. Absolutely horrible. I totally denounce loving kindness as the translation for metta. Bante G has tried to bring it more to accuracy. He translates it as loving friendliness, which is also, it's closer, but it's not that great. If you the translation that if you read the suttas and you see how the Buddha talks about metta, limitless goodwill is the most accurate translation of metta. Now, is it exactly translated to the actual word? If you wanted to actually translate the word metta, friendliness, period, friendliness, goodwill. That's the most that if you wanted to make it, that's what metta would be. But Buddha says metta is appamana, mahagada, limitless, exalted. So, limitless goodwill to me is the way to translate it. Right? And then there's other ways, other things that Ajahn Jeff translates that. Nah, I don't think that's a good one. Nah, it's not good. So the way I will like say things in English, if you pay attention and you might see like 4 or 5 different translators, depending on the word. It's like this one I prefer Ajahn Jeff, this one I prefer Bhikkhu Bodhi, this one I prefer Bhante Sujato, etc. All right, going back up. Hello, Bella and Gautam, welcome. Gregory has a question. A friend was asking if Buddhists would have a problem calling an AI sentient being when they get sufficiently advanced. This is one of those questions that you have to ponder over. It's like, it's a hard thing. It really is. I don't think it's answerable, to be honest with you. Because I mean, on one hand, you might be able to see it. Like, I mean, what is a human? What is this? But essentially, a biological machine, right? And this mind has been reborn into this machine. I used to play this thing called Mech Warrior back in the day. Like, you get into these big mechs and you tromp around and you're shooting other mechs and things like that. So I'm a gamer. What do this is how it's been. And so, like, over the years of practicing mindfulness of death and understand, Asubha practices, I kind of view like the body, it's just this kind of like machine that I've kind of inhabited, right? So, I mean, is it possible that however the processes that the karmic processes that have a being bhava come into existence, is it possible that they could do that in like a robotic or a cyborg body? I mean, I guess it's just one of those things that it's kind of too early. I don't know. It's a hard question. I think it might be a question for beyond my lifetime, to be honest with you. And I think about this video game I used to play called Mass Effect, about humanity and space in the future. And there's this like these beings called the Geth, which are like this kind of like this very advanced cybernetic kind of being, right? And it's like, well, are they sentient beings? Are they are they fellow siblings in samsara? I don't know. That's a good question. Might there be cybernetic beings out there in the universe currently? Are they sentient beings? It's a good question. I don't know. I think I remember in Star Trek growing up, the Next Generation, right? Wasn't there a bunch of things on whether that guy Data was human or not? Like, I think this is something we're going to be. We've only scratched the surface of having to deal with these hard questions. And I think, like I said, I think most of the real work in it's going to probably be after my lifetime. Joel says, "Are you familiar with Chandana Bhikkhu?" Not really. I think I've heard the name, but other than that, no, I'm not familiar with him. Hello, Visaka. Welcome. Joel, you know little of my teachings. If you want to see examples of my writing, you can Google Maggasekha.org Metta series or Maggasekha.org Mindfulness of Death series. Both of those are a 4 or 5 part series of articles explaining these practices. You get a bit more of a feel of my writing style and stuff like that. Visaka asks, Bante, when is my birthday? I will be halfway to 90 in April. End of April is my birthday. I'll be in Colorado. I'll be in Colorado during my birthday. Yeah, I'll be in Colorado. I'll be in Colorado at a Thai what? Around nobody who speaks English. So that's going to be fun. We're going to see how that works out. What exactly is being extinguished since something is reborn? Now, see, this is the thing, Visaka. Extinguishment only comes at the end of the final body of an awakened one. There is no more reborn. You're fully extinguished. Right? There's no more rebirth. Your job is done. There's no more coming back. That's why the Buddha, the sutta of the Buddha's passing is not called the Buddha's death. It's called the Buddha's parinibbana. And an arahant, when they exit their last body, they don't die. Because death is connected with birth. They have parinibbana. They are finally extinguished. Hello, Davido. Yes, it's live. Welcome. You're on Twitch. Very good. Yeah, it's live on YouTube and Twitch and Facebook. Perennial says, how do you get access to the Discord server? Well, I usually put this up at the end, but since you ask, there, send an email to that email, maggasekha@gmail.com, and ask for an invite, and you can join us. For anybody else who's seeing this, I know Perennial has been around for a while, a little bit, so they know what I'm about. And so the community is based on early Buddhist texts, right? Based on the suttas, both study and practice. All right. I don't see any more questions. Maybe we can read a sutta. Davidos from Twitch says, "What's the meaning about life?" Right? The meaning of life, according to Buddhism, is to exit the cycle of life, not being reborn again. Um, ending your suffering. That's the meaning of life, according to Buddhism. Developing yourself, practicing for the ending of your suffering. All right, let's do a share screen. Majjhima Nikaya number 49 on the invitation of Brahma. So I have heard at one time the Buddha was staying near Savatthi in Jeta's Grove, Anathapindika's monastery. There the Buddha addressed the mendicants. Mendicants, Venerable Sir, they replied. The Buddha said this. At one time, mendicants, I was staying near Ukkata in the Subhaga forest at the root of the magnificent sal tree. Now at that time, Baka the Brahma had the following harmful misconception. This is permanent. This is everlasting. This is eternal. This is whole. This is imperishable. For this is where there's no being born, growing old, dying, passing away, or being reborn. And there's no other escape beyond this. So here, the Brahma is talking about the Brahma realm. He's looking at like in his heavenly realm. He's like, oh, this is wonderful. This is permanent, everlasting. Everything's great. Right? No getting old, no dying, none of that stuff. It's all good. The Buddha calls this a harmful misconception. Then I knew what Baka the Brahma was thinking. As easily as a strong person would extend or contract their arm, I vanished from the Subhaga forest and reappeared in that Brahma realm. Baka saw me coming off in the distance and said, "Come, good sir, welcome, good sir." It's been a long time since you took the opportunity to come here. For this is permanent, this is everlasting, this is eternal, this is complete, this is imperishable. For this is where there's no being born, growing old, dying, passing away, or being reborn. And there's no other escape beyond this. When he had spoken, I said to him, Alas, Baka the Brahma is lost in ignorance. Alas, Baka the Brahma is lost in ignorance. Because what is actually impermanent, not lasting, transient, incomplete, and perishable, he says is permanent, everlasting, eternal, complete, and imperishable. And where there is being born, growing old, dying, passing away, and being reborn, he says that there's no being born, growing old, dying, passing away, and being reborn. And although there is another escape beyond this, he says there's no other escape beyond this. Then Mara the wicked took possession of a member of Brahma's retinue and said this to me: Mendicant, mendicant, don't attack this one. Don't attack this one. For this is Brahma, the great Brahma, the undefeated, the champion, the universal seers, the wielder of power, the Lord God, the maker, the author, the first, the begetter, the controller, the father of those who have been born and those yet to be born. So Mara is basically saying, this is the omnipotent creator of all things. Don't attack him. And continues on, there have been ascetics and Brahmins before you, mendicant, who criticized and loathed earth, water, air, fire, creatures, gods, the creator, and Brahma. When their bodies broke up and their breath was cut off, they were reborn in a lower realm. So this is interesting because you'll see that the Buddha in suttas will say that saying these bad things are going to lead you in a lower realm. Now here you have, too bad Anthony's not here. He would enjoy this one. Here you have Mara telling the Buddha that what he is saying can lead to the hell realms. So to be careful with his words. This is quite an interesting and rare thing in the suttas. There have been ascetics and Brahmins before you, mendicant, who praised and approved earth, water, air, fire, creatures, gods, the creator, and Brahma. When their bodies broke up and their breath was cut off, they were reborn in higher realm. So, mendicant, I tell you this, please, good sir, do exactly what Brahma says. Don't go beyond the word of Brahma. If you do, then the consequence for you will be like that of a person who, when Lady Luck approaches, wards her off with a staff. You know who Lady Luck is? Anybody ever heard of Lady Luck in the suttas? This is an interesting translation by Bhante Sujato. The goddess of luck. Right? The goddess of luck is in the suttas. See if you can see the Pali. And then you'll know a person who you talk to. And you say, hey, goddess of luck. Let's see, where is it? It's Siri. Is that iPhone? Siri is iPhone, right? Not Amazon. I don't remember. I don't know who the Amazon thing is. Hey, Siri. So this is the goddess of luck. When Lady Luck approaches, wards her off with a staff, or someone who shoves away the ground as they fall down the abyss into hell. Please, dear sir, do exactly what Brahma says. Don't go beyond the word of Brahma. Do you not see the assembly Brahma has gathered? And that is how Mara the Wicked presented the assembly of Brahma to me as an example. When he had spoken, I said to Mara, I know you, wicked one. Do not think he does not know me. You are Mara the Wicked, and Brahma's assembly, and Brahma's retinue have all fallen into your hands. They're under your sway. And you think, maybe this one too has fallen into my hands. Maybe he's under my sway. But I haven't fallen into your hands. I'm not under your sway. When I had spoken, Baka the Brahma said to me, but good sir, what I say is permanent, everlasting, eternal, complete, and imperishable, is in fact permanent, everlasting, eternal, complete, and imperishable. And where I say there's no being born, growing old, dying, passing away, or being reborn, there is in fact no being born, growing old, dying, passing away, or being reborn. And when I say there's no other escape beyond this, there is in fact no other escape beyond this. There have been ascetics and Brahmins in the world before you, mendicant, whose self-mortification lasted as long as your entire life. When there was another escape beyond this, they knew it. And when there was no other escape beyond this, they knew it. So, mendicant, I tell you this, you will never find another escape beyond this. And you will eventually get weary and frustrated. If you attach to earth, you will lie close to me in my domain, subject to my will and expendable. If you attach to water, fire, air, creatures, gods, the creator, Brahma, you will lie close to me in my domain, subject to my will and expendable. Brahma, I know that if I attach to earth, I will lie close to you in your domain, subject to your will and expendable. If I attach to water, fire, air, creatures, gods, the creator, Brahma, I will lie close to you in your domain, subject to your will and expendable. And in addition, Brahma, I understand your range and your light. That's how powerful is Bhakta the Brahma, how illustrious and mighty. But in what way do you understand my range and my light? A galaxy extends 1,000 times as far as the moon and the sun revolve. And the shining ones light up the quarters. And there you wield power. You know the high and low, the passionate and the dispassionate, and the coming and going of sentient beings from this realm to another. That's how I understand your range and light. But there is another realm that you don't know and see, but I know and I see it. This is the realm, there is a realm named after the gods of streaming radiance. You passed away from there and were reborn here. You've dwelt here so long that you've forgotten about that. You don't know it or see it, but I know it and see it. So, Brahma, I am not your equal in knowledge, still less your inferior. Rather, I know more than you. So, the Buddha is explaining here that this Brahma has dwelt so long in this life, in this existence, that he has forgotten. He has not seen birth, old age, sickness, death. Right? So he has mistaken his experience to be permanent, everlasting, etc. But the Buddha knows more. There is the realm named after the gods replete with glory, the realm named after the gods of abundant fruit, the realm named after the overlord, which you don't know or see, but I know it and see it. So, Brahma, I'm not your equal in knowledge, still less your inferior. Rather, I know more than you. Having directly known earth as earth, and have directly known that which does not fall with the scope of the experience based on earth, I did not identify with earth. I did not identify regarding earth. I did not identify as earth. I did not identify earth as mine. I did not enjoy earth. So, Brahma, I am not your equal in knowledge, still less your inferior. Rather, I know more than you. Having directly known water, fire, air, creatures, gods, the creator, Brahma, the gods of streaming radiance, the gods replete with glory, the gods of abundant fruit, the overlord, having directly known all as all, and having directly known that which does not fall within the scope of experience based on the all, I did not identify with all. I did not identify regarding all. I did not identify as all. I did not identify all as mine. I did not enjoy all. So, Brahma, I am not your equal in knowledge, still less your inferior. Rather, I know more than you. Well, good sir, if you have directly known that which is not known with the scope of experience based on all, may your words not turn out to be void and hollow. Consciousness that is invisible, infinite, entirely given up. That's what is not within the scope of experience based on earth, water, fire, air, creatures, gods, the creator, Brahma, the gods of streaming radiance, gods replete with glory, the gods of abundant fruit, the overlord, the all. Well, look now, good sir, I will vanish from you. All right then, Brahma, vanish from me, if you can. Then Bhakta the Brahma said, I will vanish from the ascetic Gautama. I will vanish from the ascetic Gautama. But he was unable to vanish from me. So I said to him, well, look now, Brahma, I will vanish from you. All right then, good sir, vanish from me, if you can. Then I used my psychic power to will that my voice should extend so that Brahma, his assembly, and his retinue would hear me, but they would not see me. And while invisible, I recited the verse. Seeing the danger in continued existence, that life as any existence will cease to be, I didn't welcome any kind of existence, and didn't grasp at relishing. Then Brahma, his assembly, and his retinue, their minds full of wonder and amazement, thought, "It's incredible! It's amazing! The ascetic Gautama has such psychic power and might. We've never before seen or heard of any other ascetic or Brahmin with psychic power and might like that the ascetic Gautama, who has gone forth from the Sakyan clan." Though people enjoy continued existence, loving it so much, he has extracted it, root and all. Then Mar the wicked took possession of a member of Brahma's retinue and said this to me: "If such is your understanding, good sir, do not present it to your disciples or those gone forth. Do not teach this Dhamma to your disciples or those gone forth. Do not wish this for your disciples or those gone forth. There have been many ascetics and Brahmins before you, mendicant, who claim to be perfected ones, fully awakened Buddhas. They presented, taught, and wished this for their disciples and those gone forth. When their bodies broke up and their breath was cut off, they were reborn in a lower realm. But there have been, this is talking about, um, Mara is saying, well, there's lots of people who have claimed that they're awakened and they teach, and then what they teach causes their disciples to go to hell because it wasn't right. But there have also been others, ascetics and Brahmins before you, Mendicants, who claim to be perfected once, fully awakened Buddhas. They did not present, teach, or wish for their disciples and those gone forth when their bodies broke up and their breath was cut off. They were reborn in a higher realm. So, mendicant, I tell you this: please, good sir, remain passive, dwelling in blissful meditation in the present life. For this is better left unsaid, good sir. Do not instruct others. When he had spoken, I said to Mara, I know you, wicked one. Do not think he does not know me. You are Mara the wicked. You don't speak to me like this out of compassion, but with no compassion. For you think, those who the ascetic Gautama teaches will go beyond my reach. Those who formerly claimed to be fully awakened Buddhas were not in fact fully awakened Buddhas, but I am. The realized one remains as such whether or not he teaches disciples. The realized one remains as such whether or not he presents the teaching to disciples. Why is that? Because the realized one has given up the defilements that are corrupting, leading to future lives, hurtful, resulting in suffering and future rebirth, old age, and death. He has cut them off at the root, made them like a palm stump, obliterated them so they are unable to arise in the future. Just as a palm tree with its crowns cut off is incapable of future growth, the realized one has given up the defilements that are corrupting, leading to future lives, hurtful, resulting in suffering and future rebirth, old age, and death. He has cut them off at the root, made them like a palm stump, obliterated them so they are unable to arise in the future. And so, because of the silencing of Mara, and because of the invitation of Brahma, the name of this discussion is On the Invitation of Brahma. All right. Oh, I had this banner up the whole time. There we go. So I don't see any questions regarding the sutta or anything like that. Maybe we can do our meditation. And that will bring us to a little bit before the end. We'll read some Dhammapada verses and then we'll close out. So close your eyes. Set up your body in a comfortable and stable position, whatever works for you. Spend some time scanning through the body, starting from the feet, moving up to the head. Bring your focus and attention to your feet. By this, I mean focus in on any feeling or sensation arriving in that part of your body. Try to know it deeply. And when you do this practice over and over, then this can also help you to understand your posture and why how you're sitting and how your posture is can cause various pains and imbalances. Bring your awareness up through the ankles into the calves. Up through to the knees, into the thighs. Was the feeling of the thighs pressing against the floor, the cushion, the couch? Up through to the hips and pelvis. This is an important part of the body for your posture. Pay attention to how the position of the hips and pelvis impacts both your legs and your spine. You're ready, move up the spine through the abdomen and the chest, checking that the spine is not leaning or slouching left or right, backwards or forwards. Or resting comfortably in its neutral position. If your spine is engaged, the different discs, over the period of your meditation, this will cause strain and then pain. This is how you get back pain while meditating due to an imbalance in the posture and also your abdomen not being strong enough to keep your upper body up straight. Up through to the shoulders, making sure they're hanging loosely, not scrunched up in tights. And then move down through the elbows and hands and observe how they also impact the posture of the spine, the upper body. And finally, up to the head, checking that the chin is parallel to the floor. The head is also not leaning and slouching here and there. When you're ready, let the body go and take 3 deep breaths. And then let the breath go. From here on in, try not to manipulate or control the breath in any way. Your body has been breathing from the moment you were born, will continue to do so until the second you die. Doesn't need you to do its job. Your job is to simply observe, investigate, and abide with the breath. Watch as the body breathes in. Watch as it breathes out. As you're following your breath, your mind will become bored and will seek to run away to the past or the future, or an external distraction like a sound will arise and your mind will chase after that. Whenever this happens, you'll lose your mindfulness, get wrapped up in the distraction. Slowly, your mindfulness, your focus, your attention will start to come back. It'll start to dawn on you that you've been taken away. At that point, try to fully come back to focus and mindfulness. Practice letting go of the distraction by neither getting agitated and pushing it away, nor by getting excited and continuing to hold on to it. Simply try to let it go. Let it be. Give it no energy, no attention. Let it go on its way. And then return to the breath. So whenever you're distracted away, acknowledge, let go, and return. Over and over again. Acknowledge, let go, and return. The breath is home base. Always return back to the breath. It's always there doing its job, ready for you to follow it towards a more tranquil, calm, peaceful mind. Acknowledge, let go, and return. Come back. Slowly start to come out of the meditation by opening your eyes, becoming fully aware of the room that you're in and everything around you, reflecting on the state of your mind now compared to before the meditation, and contemplating any experiences you might have had during the meditation. And while you do that, I'll share some Dhammapada verses. Arahantavagga, the Arahant or perfected one. The fever of passion exists not for him or her or whoever who has completed the journey, who is sorrowless and wholly set free, and has broken all ties. The mindful ones exert themselves. They are not attached to any home. Like swans that abandon the lake, they leave home after home behind. Those who do not accumulate and are wise regarding food, whose object is the void, the unconditioned freedom, their track cannot be traced like that of birds in the air. He whose cankers are destroyed and who is not attached to food, whose object is the void, the unconditioned freedom, his path cannot be traced like that of birds in the air. Even the gods hold dear the wise one, whose senses are subdued like horses well trained by a charioteer, whose pride is destroyed and who is free from the cankers. There is no more worldly existence for the wise one who, like the earth, resents nothing, who is firm as a high pillar and as pure as a deep pool free from mud. Calm is his thought, calm is his speech, and calm his deed, who truly knowing is wholly freed, perfectly tranquil and wise. The man who is without blind faith, who knows the uncreated, who has severed all links, destroyed all causes for karma, good and evil, and thrown out all desires. He truly is the most excellent of men. Inspiring indeed is that place where arahants dwell, be it a village, a forest, a vale, or a hill. Inspiring are the forests in which worldlings find no pleasure. There the passionless will rejoice, for they seek no sense pleasure. Ah, I think we'll save this one for next time. This is probably one of my favorite parts of the Dhammapada. The thousands. Okay, friends. I think we can do our business, then share merits and call it a night. So, if you are new and you're finding us for the first time, you'd like to know more, keep in touch with all the various things that I do with Maggasekha, you can go to the website scrolling on the bottom there, maggasekha.org, maggasekha.org. On this website, you can find everything that I do, whether it's new videos, new teachings, new retreats, new articles, on the top right hand of that website, you can put your email in, and every time I post something new, a notification, you'll get an email telling you giving you a link. And also, whenever the same thing on YouTube, if you click subscribe, click the bell, all, then everything I do when a new video is coming out, you'll get an email notification. I use this myself for various channels, things like that, and I always get a notification. It's a very good thing to have. So, in terms of regular weekly events, these are all, of course, subject to me being in places where I'm able to do these. That's not always the case in my nomad life, but at least for the next couple of weeks. Dhammapaloozas, Monday night, 8 p.m. New York time. Every morning, Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. New York time. Morning monastery experience, a half-hour session that is like what you would experience if you went and stayed at a monastery. There's some chanting, some precepts, little puja as they call it, and then some Dhamma teaching, a little Dhamma to start the day with. And Wednesdays, I usually do an Ask a Bhante video. And there's a couple other things that come up when I have the time and energy to do so. So keep an eye out for those. If you put your email in the website, then every time something like that comes out, you will get notified. All right, let's share merits. No, not that. Share screen window. There we go. Dukkha patta chani dukkha, bhaya patta chani bhaya, soka patta chani soka, hontu sabbe pipaniyo, etavata cha amehi sampatang punya sampatang, sabbe deva anumodantu, sabbe sampatti siddhya, akasata jabumata deva naga mahitika punyang tang anumoditva charang rakantu sasanang. May the suffering ones be suffering free, and the fear-struck fearless be. May the grieving shed all grief, and may all beings find relief. May all beings share this merit of ours that we've thus acquired for the acquisition of all kinds of happiness. May beings inhabiting space and earth, devas, nagas, and yakas of mighty power, share this dispensation of ours. May they long share this merit of ours. May they long protect the Buddha's dispensation. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Oh, Manuel, Alejandra. Yes, it's been a while. It's good to see you. Yeah. All right. Well, friends, it's another Dhammapalooza in the books. May you have a spiritually successful and peaceful practice until we meet again. Sukhi Hotu, practice well and be well. Have a good week.